Hyvää iltapäivää täältä meidän klubilta, viherpäiviltä. Paikalla on kohta aloittava luennoitsija Thomas ja hänen kanssaan aiomme keskustella nyt englanniksi. Hello Thomas,
Hello.
Welcome to Finland. You are from Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences and Norwegian University of Life Sciences. But you did say you're Danish, so
Yes.
can you explain?
Well, I'm Danish, and I've been working in Denmark for many years, but for the last 3 years I've been at the university in Sweden, working with green space management. And then I have a kind of similar appointment in Norway, but on a smaller rate. So actually, right now I'm engaged in both Sweden and Norway. So good to be here in Finland.
Okay, nice to have you here. So you're speaking about future perspectives about the green space management, and in Finland we don't have that one correct word to the concept of the management and maintenance. Can you specify the meaning of this green space management after the constructions are done?
After the constructions are done, yeah, exactly. But that's a funny thing, because you kind of imply that after construction comes management, and I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. We usually say that management is more than just following the construction. It's more than weeding, more than mow the lawns, etc. It's actually what we call maintenance. So we kind of distinguish between management and maintenance. And management is more kind of overall. It's about both the planning, setting the visions, the long-term perspectives. It's about designing or redesigning. It's about construction, reconstruction. And it's about maintenance. So management is actually broader than the actual maintenance. So we kind of distinguish between the two terms.
Okay, because in Finland we think that the management includes only this weed picking and mowing the lawn. So
yeah, but I think that's not only in Finland.
Okay,
I think that's everywhere.
Yeah.
That we tend to focus very much on the operations. That means the maintenance. So many organizations have their primary focus on actually mowing the lawn or describing how to mow the lawn, but maybe not focusing so much about actually why we're doing it, setting the visions and the long-term perspectives about it. And we try to emphasize that management is actually about both the planning part of it, but it's also the operations. So this combination is really the core of management.
Yeah. So how do you suggest that we should do in Finland? What should we do to make the difference in here?
I have to be careful to give you good suggestions about what to do in Finland, because I don't know the Finnish situation well enough, obviously. But I think where we usually tend to focus when we talk about green space management is the municipalities or the local governments, as we say. And I don't think that the local government structure is very different in Finland to the other Scandinavian countries. So maybe we can compare a little bit. And it's quite common that many of these organizations, they have a huge focus on the maintenance part, on actually organizing and setting up how to maintain the areas. And there's a good logic for that. You know, it requires a lot of resources, a lot of people being engaged, and a lot of cities have worked on outsourcing, cooperation between public and private. So they actually ask the private to come in and do this lawn mowing for them. So obviously there's been a focus on that. But there's also been a tendency in a lot of countries, not only the Scandinavian countries, also in Germany, England, a lot of countries where this focus on organizing the maintenance has been the main focus. And that's a problem. And that's also a problem if that's the case in Finland, and I think that's what you're implying actually, that a lot of organizations, they have their primary focus on organizing the maintenance part, and they kind of forget how to or think about the long-term perspectives. And very often these way of thinking are actually located in different organizations also, or different departments within the same organization. So you have a planner sitting in one type of organization or one building, and you have the maintenance people sitting in a different one. And they may not be communicating in an optimal manner. And that's an issue you need to deal with, obviously, also in Finland.
Yeah. Do you think that we don't respect maintenance enough?
I don't know. I think I think there's a lot of respect about maintenance, but I think if we are primarily focusing on maintenance, we are forgetting to tell the good stories about all the qualities and values of green spaces. Yeah. I mean, during the last 10, 15, 20 years, we have gained so much evidence about the values of green spaces, and that's a problem if we don't, communicate that message in the system. And there's a risk that we do not communicate that information if we primarily focus on the maintenance. If the maintenance focus is the primary or maybe the only one in an organization, we never communicate all the values of elderly people having good green spaces, or kids having good school grounds, outdoor learning, all the health benefits of being in green spaces. There's a tendency in the Scandinavian countries to be getting obesity and so on. Green spaces have a lot of solutions to these problems, but we don't communicate those. We don't get the primary benefits out of it if we are basically just mowing the lawns. And that's a problem, obviously. So the organization has some responsibility in actually lifting all these values of green spaces into other parts of the organization. But I think also if we have an organization where the primary expertise, green expertise, lies within the maintenance department, these people have a responsibility too, because they are the experts. Yeah. Somebody have to lift that agenda, even in smaller municipalities where the primary focus is on maintenance.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. So where the difference start? Is it on the upper levels or somewhere where just do we have to change our minds in here?
I don't know. I mean, we have to be realistic also. Let's say in a local government situation, a municipality, the green budget may be 1.5% of the total budget. Mm. The main part of the budget is about schools, health, having good, safe roads, etc. So the green part is not a very big part, and it's not a big part on the political agenda either. But we have so many good stories, and we have so much value within the green industry that we probably need to be better in promoting that also within such organizations. If you look outside the city, if you have a housing agency or something like that, they have a lot of green spaces also, which are very, very important. I mean, they attract people. People want to live in good green spaces, in good attractive spaces. But those people usually employed in these organizations, they have a different agenda. Mm. The main agenda is to make sure that we have a safe and secure roof over our heads. We have heating in the pipelines, etc. And then we have somebody who's taking care of the green spaces. And usually they have a maintenance focus. So that is an issue. That is something we as an industry need to deal with also from a management perspective, to be able to lift that agenda in and really ask the question, why are we having these green spaces? What are they good for?
Yeah. That is something we have to see what happens next 10
yes.
years.
Yes.
You speak about the nature-based solutions. Can you explain what that means and how it affects to the designs?
Yeah, I can try to give an example. Nature-based solution is a relatively new term. And I'm going to speak later today about just giving a brief presentation. But for those who's not able to be here today, I guess that's why you're asking. You say is that it follows, you see, the ecosystem service thinking. I don't even know about this term, but ecosystem services is a way of organizing all the values of green spaces or nature, you can say. So there's been a long way of thinking in how to organize green spaces and highlighting all the benefits. But the nature-based solution thinking comes out now because there's a tendency to think that we need to do something. Nature-based solutions is about actions. Now it's time to act. Actually, the European Commission has, during the last couple of years, generated a number of huge projects, 10 million euro projects, about nature-based solutions related to climate change and related to urban regeneration. And they're doing this because they also believe, the European Commission believes that now it's time to act. We need to do something, and we need to do it being inspired by nature or respecting nature. So this is what nature-based solutions is about. Really, you can say going back to nature, but in a way, but also being inspired by nature. Do it simple, and I'll give you an example of how that could influence design, because it's a new term and we don't really see how that has affected design yet. But in my world, it's about being thinking in very simple terms. So let's say we have a street tree. We all know the street trees are suffering in urban areas because they can't really grow in urban areas. So we've had a tendency for the last 20 years to come up with a number of technical solutions to solve this problem. Nature-based solution would be saying, well, what would nature do? Nature would have a huge planting bed where you can plant a tree in a setting which is as close to nature as possible. So that requires a big planting bed. You must say, well, there's not room for that in the city. So, okay, we may have to rethink the way that we are designing green spaces in the city. So this is about planning, this is about urban planning, this is about designing. So maybe to plant trees more strategically where we have room for them, or we can create room for them, instead of planting them in a systematic manner as we've done for 200 years. So this is how nature-based solutions can actually influence also the overall planning, the design, and maybe it's also an example of management being more than just maintenance. Yeah. It influences the whole, you can say, logic of planning, designing, constructing, and maintaining.
Yeah. It includes all of them.
It does, yes.
Yeah. How people have take this idea of nature-based solutions? Is there been any negative approaches about this?
I don't know. I mean, this is new. So I don't think we have seen a lot. I mean, and I'm not aware about all the places where it's been implemented. There's been a lot of competitions where it's been promoted, and there's a tendency that nature-based solutions is also about something very naturalistic, right? Yeah. So it's about grasses and maybe a lot of weeds and stuff, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. But I think nature-based solutions or urban nature, which could be another term for something similar, is about a different aesthetic. So it looks, maybe it doesn't look so neat and well trimmed, because what we used to see is a lawn being mowed 25, 30 times during the season to keep it very fine and sharp, and this is the image that we have been used to. Maybe a nature-based solution would not mow the lawn so much. Maybe we would only mow the lawn where we would play on it. Yeah. But where we are not going to play, we would maybe do something different. That would be a nature-based solution. So we would reduce the amount of energy to mow the lawn. We may also be increasing the functionality of the area, because we can increase the biodiversity by having longer grass in some areas and cut grass in other areas. So it will change the aesthetics of the place. So this is actually another dimension of nature-based solutions, which is also the social part of it. You need to engage people. Yeah. So if you just do the change as a manager, people will get, what's going on. They want to know, they want to be engaged, they want to be included. Yeah. So that's a very important part of nature-based solutions also, that we are actually engaging people and getting their input to how we should do it in a different manner. So maybe there will be a change, I think, in aesthetics, but we have to work with that to make the right change.
Hope that will work.
Sure.
Between humans. Yeah. The Finnish audience thinks that your point of views is extremely interesting. How citizens participate at the urban landscape management as your POU model propose? And can you explain the POU? Yeah,
the POU model is a very, very simple model, and actually it was created by one of my colleagues, Bengt Persson, in Sweden. Okay. But we use it a lot because it's very, very simple. It's about the organization, that's the O. It's about the parks, the green spaces, that's the P, and the U is the users. So it's about the organization and the green spaces, and the organization is doing something with the green spaces, but they're doing it for somebody. That's the users. That's why we have this triangle, and that's why this very, very simple model is actually very important, because never forget that we're doing it for somebody, and we tend to, referring to what we started off with, if we tend to just do the maintenance, we kind of get into a routine where we just mow the lawn and we cut the hedges, but we kind of forget why we're actually doing this. Well, we're doing it for somebody, and we need to engage somebody. So that's why we have this triangle. That's why we have the users involved. And sometimes, or very often, we actually denote the users as a customer, because that's also a new trend. We have this mega trend of individualization. We kind of pay our taxes, so we expect some kind of an output.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like when we buy something, when we buy a good, we expect a product. So you can say that the organization is actually delivering a product to the customer who's paying their taxes. So you can use that model in many different ways, but always, I mean, the main thing is to think about we're doing it for somebody. And that kind of influence from the users, what do they actually want, what do they expect, is very, very important today. And I think very few managers, planners that are doing very little today without actually engaging the users.
Yeah, okay. Really interesting about that. Does the customer see the POU model from outside without knowing the model? Can you just take the citizens to the model without just noticing? I don't think a citizen who's have a busy daily life, studying or taking their kids to kindergarten or going to work, think about the model. Obviously they don't, but I think it's inherently, and when I talk about this mega trend of individualization, it lies in the modern society that we kind of expect to be engaged or involved or heard, and we also expect some kind of a return for our investments, which is our taxes. Yeah. So when we pay to the public, and the public has a responsibility of delivering green spaces, there's a growing tendency that we expect to be engaged or involved, and that can be happening in many, many different ways. But it's a challenge. It's a lot easier as a manager to just mow the lawn than to actually engage people. But we see a growing tendency. You see it in urban gardening. You see it in maybe not so much in the Scandinavian countries, but you see a lot of or growing interest in the UK, in North America, where the budgets have been cut dramatically, and there you have a dilemma, you can say, from a management perspective, because engaging people is actually a way of getting something done which you maybe not be able to do otherwise. On one hand, and on the other hand, you want to satisfy this growing interest in being engaged, and this is a balance. And we haven't really come to the point in Scandinavia where we are engaging people because we need to, or we have to. But we see a growing tendency in actually lowering the budgets. We have less money today than we used to have for the management or maintenance of green space. So that actually goes hand in hand with the growing interest from the users to be engaged. But we have to find this way of doing it. And this is one of the main challenges we have in the future, how to find that balance. And I just mentioned the urban gardening, which is very popular. People want to be engaged, they need. But I would claim that in Finland, Sweden, it's a social construct. It's not because you need to grow the vegetables or the potatoes. It's because it's a very nice way of engaging with your local neighbors or family, friends, and so on. In other parts of the world, this is very serious, because you need to grow locally to simply survive. But here it's still very much a thing we do because we like it. And it's a very nice activity to do. Okay, how do you see the future of urban space management? Can we have many people to do this project and be in the maintenance too?
Sure. I mean, the grass will keep growing, right? I think we've never had a time where the green spaces or the green industry has so much focus as it has today. I mean, nobody's questioning the value of green spaces. Everybody likes green. Nobody will talk about or against green spaces or the value of green spaces. So we don't have to argue for that anymore, actually, basically. But we need to be better in doing it. And there's a lot about the organization of it. There's a lot about how we see ourselves as advocates for the green spaces that we need to look into. I think for some overall trends, there may be a couple. One is the nature-based solutions. I think back to nature, using nature, being inspired by nature, simply respecting it because we need it. the big challenges in climate change and so on really need us to think in different ways. And there we have some of the answers we have to work with. But then there's the other agenda, which is more technological. It may sound as a contradiction, but the whole smart city, technological, how do we integrate that in our management? One thing is to include it in the solutions, but also as a help to create the overviews, to help to design, to plan, and maybe to engage the users, social media as we're on now, etc. I mean, I think the green industry, and especially within management, can be a lot better in introducing the technologies in the future management, and at the same time have this, you say, natural approach also. So it's both.
We'll hope to the best.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You can say what you.
Well, that's what combines that is actually the social perspectives. Yeah. So that's if we should mention 3 perspectives now. It's the database solutions, it's the smart city technological approach, and it's the user approach. It's the involvement, engagement, the social agenda, which is huge and obvious, because green spaces are just brilliant places to actually engage people, and we have so much evidence of that now. So that would definitely be one of the challenges we as managers have to work with in the future.
We hope for the best. Let's see how the future seems with the green space management.
Right.
Thank you, Thomas Randrup, and have a nice Finland trip.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you.